Ladies and gentlemen, something big is happening tomorrow night in a place called Mound Bayou, Mississippi. We want to let you know what Mound Bayou is and what it's all about. Let me try to explain it this way. Mound Bayou, we know all about Tulsa and Black Wall Street. Mound Bayou, as for some of you to understand, would probably be the Tulsa of Mississippi, or we might want to say Tulsa is the Mound Bayou of Oklahoma. That's probably the better way to say it, considering our guests here. I'm sure that's how they would like for me to say it. But a thriving Black community, and there's a museum. Many people don't know. We hear about Jackson and other places, but what about Mound Bayou? The Mound Bayou Museum is having its first annual gala tomorrow night, August 12th, 2023. And we have some very esteemed guests here to tell us about the museum, the gala, and for those of us who don't know, to introduce us to the great Black city of Mound Bayou, Mississippi. And those guests are the co-founders and organizers of the museum, Hermon M. Johnson Jr. and Reverend Darryl Johnson. Welcome, both brothers.
Thank you so very much. We're glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And another dear friend is with us, whose parents, when they were married, they left Alcorn. I think I have that right. And they met at Alcorn, and then they went to Mound Bayou. After they were married, I think I have it right. But she'll get me straight on all of that. Their wonderful daughter. We just celebrated Myrlie Evers' 90th. I was so honored to be a part of that down in Jackson with the Medgar and Myrlie Evers Institute. Reena Evers-Everette is with us as well, the daughter of Medgar and Myrlie Evers. Reena, how are you?
I am just so happy to be with all of you. And I'm doing well, trying to recoup from a lot of festivities that Reverend Mark, you and I have been a part of in the last 2 months.
That's right. You've been running.
And I just want to say hello to my brothers Johnson, the other brother Johnson.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. Brother Johnson, I like that.
And we have all been connected, as you will hear, throughout our lifetimes. And it's just wonderful to always uplift, and I'm going to say it first, the place that I was born, and the people who supported my parents being there. And just one correction, Mark, Alcorn, not Alcorn. All.
I'm sorry. That's why you look like that. I done had the facts wrong. I had the pronunciation wrong, y'all. That's something when folks give you a funny look just on the pronunciation. I thought
I heard it too, but I couldn't say nothing. So
I apologize.
No. A lot of people make that I'm going to say mistake, but it's a sensitive thing to those of us who whose parents have been there, who we've been there. Because it's a historical site within its own right.
Of course.
It's a historical site. So,
well, I apologize. And full disclosure, I should know better because I grew up in Nashville watching Tennessee State football. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee State and Alcorn used to play back when Black college football was in its heyday, in the late 60s and early 70s. So I know better. It's Alcorn. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, first of all, Hermon or Darryl, the brothers Johnson, y'all, whoever like to go first, tell us about the museum in the first place and how it came to be.
Well, let me just say this, and then my brother will kind of talk a little bit about it. It was basically I've been in Mound Bayou all of my life, except the fact that I went to Alcorn State University and painted myself purple and gold. So I just made sure that I'm purple and gold coming back to Mound Bayou in the same tradition as Myrlie and Medgar Evers did. But the fact is that when I made it to 8th grade and having been coming up in the house with a man that took Medgar Evers' job, my dad, and me seeing all of these civil rights icons now and actually being at his leg and holding his leg when he's at all of these civil rights meetings, and following him around and going to Fannie Lou Hamer's house and telling her that I smell chitlins and that don't smell good in your house and stuff like that. And those type of things. I knew when I was 8th grade that when they handed me the Mississippi history book, it said nothing, absolutely nothing about the history of Mound Bayou. And I thought that was just a travesty. Something was wrong. And with my young mind, I wanted to know these people that I respected to give me history absolutely purposely hid Mound Bayou's history, hid African-American history, and was saying things that I just did not believe were correct. And I just had it in my mind that if someone would have to tell the story of African-American history, this great story that I lived, that Reena lived, my brother lived, it was going to have to be us. So therefore, just at 2021, we finally, through a series of different things, got a building to place, to have a museum. And through great miracles of God, we were able to set up a museum in just the last minute. Reena was a part of that. We actually created a museum like overnight. Reena, you remember?
Oh, yes, I truly remember.
And
I know Hermon does too.
Yeah, so it's been like for 2 years to be at this point that we're at. It is absolutely mind-boggling, but it had to be. It was something that I believe God wanted to have, and I could share with you a whole lot about that. But I just believe this is a destiny, and we're in the midst of it. But Hermon.
Well, I mean, you stole a lot of my thunder. I can just add. The only thing I can add to that is that, I was in Los Angeles for most of my life now, from 77 to 2020, and Darryl will communicate and tell me things about what was going on here. And I read a synopsis. He sent me a synopsis about the history of Mound Bayou. Now, I knew the history of Mound Bayou growing up. I thought I did. But when I read that synopsis about the enslaved people coming from Davis Bend, and I knew some of these things, but a light went on when I read about how they bought that plantation, developed the highest grade of cotton in the world, and then brought that ingenuity here. And then all the things they did here, I said, somebody needs to tell that story. And so I took that 13-page synopsis and without knowing exactly what I was doing and the gravity of what I was doing, I went over to Screenwriters Guild and I filed it. I said, somebody's got to make a movie out of this. And I want this story to be under my name, that if somebody makes a movie out of it, I want to raise my hand and say, I was the first one to say that this story has that weight. But then circumstances hit. We came here because of COVID, that type of thing. And I left California, and the opportunity arose that we could open this museum. And it has been a fabulous ride for the last 2 years. Just all the things that we have been able to say about Mound Bayou, and it's the story of Mound Bayou on a national scale is something that needs to be elevated.
Absolutely. You mentioned, Darryl, that you all's father succeeded Reena's father. Mm-hmm. In what job? What was that?
Reena, go ahead.
No, go ahead. He asked you.
Whoever wants to answer it.
Go ahead, Reena.
Go ahead, Reena.
My father was hired by Dr. T.R.M. Howard out of Alcorn, out of graduation, and came up as an insurance agent. Okay, initially. So, but
what was the name of that insurance company? Was it Magnolia?
Magnolia Insurance.
Right.
And I just have to thank again the brothers, but especially Darryl, because Darryl, you and I have been hanging with this for over 10 years or more,
Right.
about uplifting Mound Bayou. And there's still the sign of the Magnolia Insurance Agency, which is pivotal and critical to understanding a tangible piece of history and making sure that we can connect that with the stories that Hermon has filed. Thank you, Hermon, for doing that. Really. And Darryl, go ahead and tell more about your dad, because you were the
Right.
one to surprise me when I came up, about 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and we were doing a documentary, and it was about our family, and there's no story that can be told without Mound Bayou being included and being highlighted, because it was a pivotal point in my father's life in order to elevate his vision on what was right for his people. And Dr. T.R.M. Howard, oh my gosh, his story alone needs to be volumes.
Yes.
I know there's
Yes.
a book, but as you pointed out at the very beginning, that you talk about Tulsa, you talk about Black Wall Street. Okay, Mount Bayou was the business mecca of Mississippi. All right, there's Fair Street in Jackson, but it's nothing ever
That's right.
compared to Mount Bayou.
And Mark, it was
And this
strategic.
was also an all-black city too, right?
It was an
Right.
all-black city, founded, established, thriving hospital, which I was born in, by the famous Dr. T.R.M. Howard. He delivered my brother Darryl, Kenyatta, and I. And yeah, it was amazing. And even in the Till movie, it shows a little bit of that, and I'm so glad that happened. But Darryl, please go ahead.
Yeah. So it number one, Mega was deep. He was deeper than really. I wish his story could really be told, because what was going on in his mind as I read about how deep he was passionate about not only African Americans, but African who came to America. That's how deep he was. And so to have a place that was an absolute sanctuary for African Americans to I call it a place where other people called us chickens, where they would send eagles to fly. And Mega was one of those eagles that was provided that sanctuary. He and Myrlie in Mound Bayou through Magnolia Mutual Life Insurance Company. But the fact is that just was not an insurance company,
Right.
but it was an incubator for the civil rights movement. And that place was housed people like Medgar Evers, Myrlie Evers, Dr. T.R.M. Howard, who came from those places speaking about the injustices that African Americans had to face, and how they were calling the names of the congressman and the governor on a constant basis. He was a field secretary for the Mega was a field secretary, but actually he wasn't just dealing with insurance in the fields. So those were the places. That was the place that and then you called the church a church, but it was an incubator. These places that blacks met in Mound Bayou was an incubator to help people understand life and how to live this life in a racist South. And so that was very important. And Reena is important to us now. We call each other brothers and sisters. We share the same desk, typewriter, and chair of our parents.
Wow.
And that's in the museum.
That's what he surprised me. And he gave me, I called him, I said, hey, this is a documentary that's going on. You're the person to talk to about Mound Bayou. Took me around, and I love his father, your father, He said, I have a surprise for you. And so we went to their home, and his father they showed me the typewriter, desk, and chair that my father used, and then their father used. And it was just amazing. And it sent chills up and down my spine when I sat down there, just to know what was really being put. And, Dr. Howard had such a amazing, charismatic following about activism, and with Regional Council of Negro Leaders having conferences in Mound Bayou at 10,000 at that time. Wow. 10,000 in 1940s, late 1940s, early 50s. So don't tell me that wasn't a powerful place to be empowered as a race. And then you have presidents of the United States stopping in. Okay, so and not until Barack Obama was there, a Black president. So there was a whole bunch of other people stopping in.
Other looking presidents coming through there.
Yeah.
Also, Mound Bayou played a role. You mentioned Emmett Till. Played a role in the Emmett Till saga. It was a refuge for his mom, and I don't have the geography. Emmett was killed not far from there. Do I have that right?
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, he was killed in a bunch of places. They said they killed him several different times, and he was driven all over 2 or 3 counties. But he was taken out of money, I believe, and that's not far. Then the trial is in Sumner. All of those places are, and then he was actually beaten, really, in Drew. A lot of that beating went on in Drew. Drew is out of all those different places, Drew is the closest, but they're all within 30, 35, 40 minutes from here.
Right.
And do I have this correct too? Is Fannie Lou Hamer also from Mound Bayou?
No, she's from Rouville, Mississippi, but she died in Mound Bayou. Yes, and that's not far.
Right.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's all everybody in these little cities around here. Everybody basically knows one another, and so she's only about 20 miles from here.
So the desk and the typewriter that your fathers both shared is in the museum?
That's correct.
Yeah, and he took Medgar's his first job out of college. He was actually headed to Chicago. He had married my mother, and here he had met her and married her here. But he's from Louisiana, basically, and he was on his way to Chicago, going to pick up his wife and go to Chicago and get a job. But somebody had suggested that he talk to Howard, and he did, and Howard gave him a job. And it was the job that Medgar had just left. And so he walks into that office, and that office had been Medgar's. And so that thing, when they closed the company, all of that furniture came to the house.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
That I also understand that there are some of the costumes or the wardrobe that was worn in the Till movie has been donated to the museum?
Well, yes. We first got the donation from Women of the Movement.
Okay.
Last year, we had the props from that movie, but Till came out, of course, last year, and we screened it here in Mound Bayou the day before it went out for wide release, and so MGM was here, and for a day or 2 or 3, and I'm guessing now that they saw what we had as far as Women of the Movement in the museum. And so we've been going back and forth with them. So we're now getting ready to take the Women of the Movement props out of this one room, and we're going to put in the Till props. And that studio, MGM, is coming in to do that themselves. They have those professional curators and those people coming in to actually, and they're putting money behind it put on that exhibit.
That's great. Congratulations on that.
Yes.
And so, since you went to the Screenwriters Guild, did you remind MGM about the screenplay? Are they gonna
No.
get down with that? But they can't do it now because we on strike. We on strike. We're
Yeah.
not working with them right now. But when that gets resolved,
Yes.
they about that life.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, when Keith Beauchamp gets here, I'm gonna pull him to the side and we're gonna have a conversation.
Good.
Yeah, we're not letting them go without talking about the whole thing.
Exactly.
That's good. That's good. So tell everyone, folks, we're in this moment in this African-American historical museum era for a couple of reasons. The Smithsonian has increased the level of popularity, obviously, for these types of endeavors. We know that our history is under assault in the different states and cities, being led in Florida, first of all, by DeClantis. And so this is an important moment. And so tell us about what's going on. And I want all of our listeners and viewers to get involved, to support it. Like I said, I grew up in Nashville. I had not visited the National Museum of African-American History, African-American Music in Nashville until July. Blown away. Hadn't been home but a few years. Blew my mind. I'm gonna tell everybody, you've never been to Nashville, don't ever go by that Museum of African-American Music. There's so much rich history, and there's still not enough space and time to get everything in. You spend about 4 hours in the Smithsonian or the Blacksonian in DC. It takes you a good 2 hours in Nashville. But all of these places really could be expanded. And this is just the beginning. So, Brother Hermon, tell us about tomorrow night, the gala. And for those of you who I was going to try to make it, I can't, I apologize. That's why I wanted to do this. And I'm going to say to everybody, if you can't make it to Mound Bayou tomorrow, there's still a way you can help. Hermon, tell everybody about what's happening tomorrow night. And Reena's being honored.
Exactly. We're awarding Reena, among others, Keith Beauchamp. There's some other people who have done a lot to help us to get to where we are now. And we're awarding them because the gala is really, the awards we're giving away are not giving away, but the award we're awarding these people is called the Ben Vision Award. And we talk a lot here in Mound Bayou. Forever, we've talked a lot about I.T. Montgomery, who founded Mound Bayou. But we have not talked a lot about his father, who had the vision as an enslaved man for a city like Mound Bayou. And matter of fact, his vision was much, much larger. And we get into some of that at the museum. He actually was looking to build a country, to start a country basically in this area. And he died, of course, and his son took his vision. And so we say, for the man to be enslaved and have the vision as large as he had, then he needed to be honored. That's why we have that. So the gala tomorrow is a fundraising gala, our first annual fundraising gala. And I hear you just said something about the Music Museum in Nashville. A lot of people, when they come here to this museum, they say the same thing. They don't have enough time to actually take in everything that's here. And there is a lot more that we can add to it. And we are proposing, I know our museum here is under 5,000 square feet, but we feel that we can at least build a 50,000 square feet museum, and just to accommodate a lot of the exhibits that are coming. Some of the things that we have in storage that we can't put out yet, things that we have been promised in other places. So we kind of need help, and we needed to take a step toward that direction. We are part of an effort now to build a hotel here, and on that land we want to build another museum and other things that the city needs. So there's a big effort here because we want to restore Mound Bayou back to the glory that it previously had.
And that's what we need. We need these communities restored. Where can people go? I'm sorry, Reena, you want to say something? Go right ahead.
No, all I was going to say is that this is critically important, as you've already mentioned, is that not only are we under attack in various ways with our civil rights, but to erase and color our history is something that we cannot allow. No one should allow in their cultural and ethnic background. They should not. And so this is a critical piece. Mound Bayou really needs to be known internationally in a strong force about what the contributions that have been given prior to the 50s, because there's a lot that has not been stated. And so I just want to stress, and I know you were going to say that, but please support the Mound Bayou Museum and the efforts of understanding our total history.
Amen. No, we must do that. Remdale, tell people where to go to even if they're not coming, to buy tickets to support the gala and support the museum, where they can go, what website they can go to make donations.
There are two websites.
Good.
There's one website that is active now specifically called moundbayougala.com. That is the website you can go directly to go and buy all of your tickets. But just in case you want to explore the museum, there is a button right at the top of the museum's website, which is moundbayoumuseum.com. So two websites, moundbayougala.com and moundbayoumuseum.com. Both of them will take you to get tickets and for the gala tonight. But the other one, Mound Bayou Museum, will absolutely help you to understand some of the things that we're doing and to be able to see our visions.
And can I just add that we believe, as great as Mound Bayou was, we believe our future is much bigger than what we used to be here. So and that's where we stand, and that's our push, and that's what we believe, and so that's where we're going.
MoundBayouGala.com, MoundBayouMuseum.com. Folks, this is so much to learn, so much to share. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. Please support this. And let's get to Mississippi. I couldn't make it for this weekend, but I'm going to come down there and I'm going to check it out and do everything I can to promote it. I hope you will too. I should mention and I was sharing with Hermon offline just the other day, one of my family churches in Nashville had a very famous pastor whose family came from Mound Bayou. He came from Mound Bayou, Kelly Miller Smith Jr., who knew your dad, knew your parents.
Right.
His heritage is in Mound Bayou, and I intend to let the family know about that, so they can be involved. But we need to support. We need to, especially now, because let me just say this, folks. When cities like Mound Bayou and Tulsa and all of in many cities in the South, we had a street. Nashville had Jefferson Street. We had streets that were ours, but we also had a form of education that was ours. It came from the church. It came from the Masonic halls, wherever it was.
Right.
We didn't wait on some governor to tell us what we could teach our kids and what they should know. Amen. So it's important that, it may take us a minute to get back in the habit of having our own freedom schools in our living rooms and in our church basements. But one thing we can do, we have these edifices today that are called museums that are doing this great work and continuing that ministry and mission of educating us about our history. So we got to support this. I beseech you. MoundBayouGala.com, please, ma'am, please, sir. MoundBayouMuseum.com. Give what you can, and let's continue to help build this great place. I want to thank my very special guests and thank them for joining us. Mound Bayou Museum's Brothers Johnson. I like that. Y'all should just call yourselves that. That's cool. Brothers Johnson. Reverend Darryl, Brother Hermon, and of course, the firstborn, the darling daughter. You were born there. How old were you when the family moved to Jackson, Reena?
3.
Okay.
Three.
But that's your home. That's your birthplace.
That is. But Reverend Mark, we want to thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
With what you do
Yes.
and how you empower us,
Yeah.
and how you are faithful. And we come from that strength that you give us. So thank you for what
Yes.
you do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you.
Reena, that's so kind of you. I appreciate that. I don't know what it is. I can't help it. I just I wake up in the morning and I'm like,
You do know what it is. You do know what it is, and you
Rev,
do know who it comes from.
yes,
Okay.
amen. You're right.
Rev Mark, can I close like a preacher?
Come on, please.
I'm because I'm a preacher,
Yes, sir.
and I just want to say something. They tried to kill the truth. His name was the truth. His name was Jesus. And every time you put the truth and try to cover it up, it comes back up. And it keeps spreading itself. So I get happy when that assault, it makes me, the Bible says, count it all joy when you fall into tests, trials, and temptations. I get happy when I see somebody thinking that they can kill our history, because the more they try to put their foot on our history, the more those same people that's recipients of them trying to hide will go and try to find out what that history is that they're trying to hide. And that's what's happening now. That's why so many people are coming to our museums and trying to find what the real history is about African Americans. And that's why we have to be ready to tell our story.
Exactly.
Amen. Amen. Folks, it's time to go back home.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yes, sir.
We're going back to Mound Bayou, moundbayougala.com, moundbayumuseum.com. Hermon Johnson, Reverend Darryl Johnson, Reena, Evers-Everette. Love you all. Thank you for being here.
Love
God
Thank
you.
you, Dr.
God
Mark.
bless Mound
you.
Bayou. I'll be there soon as I can.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bless